Welcome, Dr. Tina Piers. I'm delighted to have you on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Neil, for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here.
I'm really excited for our conversation because I've been following you for a number of years during the COVID times, which apparently we're still in. You are a conventionally trained medical doctor, transitioned to a naturopathic doctor and holistic doctor. You're one of those doctors who was very outspoken and speaking the way I saw it for the people, challenging what we'd consider the narrative. And you saw some pretty interesting things fairly early on. You yourself were actually injured, weren't you, by the vaccine?
I was, yes, I
Yeah,
was, which was, I should have listened to my gut, which was don't take it.
interesting. Yeah.
Don't do it. And I didn't listen to my gut because I was told that I would lose my practicing privileges at two private hospitals I worked at and probably at the other clinic I worked at in London if I didn't have two. And I was in a dilemma because I wasn't frightened of COVID. I knew how to treat COVID. I worked that out in the spring of 2020. And I treated about 100 patients with acute COVID, and none of them needed oxygen. None of them went to hospital. None of them died. They all got better very rapidly. Some stopped coughing within 4 hours of taking an antihistamine. I mean, it was remarkable. If you give the right treatment, how quickly people respond. And these are all things people could buy over the counter. But anyway, so I'd worked out how to treat acute COVID. And so I wasn't frightened of getting COVID. But by then I had opened a long COVID clinic and I was seeing a lot of very sick people. And I thought, who's going to look after them if I don't carry on working? So I felt very obliged, I suppose is the word, because I've cared about my patients so much. I wanted to carry on working and helping them because these people have been sort of gaslit by so many professionals, so-called.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so I had to, and it was the second one. After the second one, I had within an hour, I had a tremor in my right hand.
Gosh, I've heard of
I
this one.
then, yeah, I then started get developing eczema on the back of my neck, and I've never had eczema. And then I rosacea, and my tongue started to swell up, and I had burning mouth syndrome, which lasted about 2.5 months. That was awful. I had peripheral epilepsy in my left leg. If I sat on the floor in a certain position with my legs straight in front of me, playing with my grandchildren, my left leg would go into spasm uncontrollably. So that's peripheral epilepsy. Very alarming. I had narcolepsy. Suddenly I was falling asleep mid-sentence. It was
Yeah.
terrifying, really. Um, and then yeah, and then it obviously really activated my mast cells because
Mm.
I'd obviously got a bit of mast cell activation syndrome, but I'd always been fine with it. You know, when I was little, I had asthma and I had lots of allergies and allergic to a lot of animals and things and hay fever. But then as I grew up, it was fine. And and then this just put it onto steroids, really. So suddenly I couldn't eat lots of high histamine foods. If I did, the rosacea was, my face would go bright red. I'd have rosacea all over my skin. It was just like, oh my goodness. Yeah, I was like that for 2 years looking for an answer to clear it and
That's
finally found the answer.
incredible, incredible.
Mm.
So I didn't properly introduce you at the beginning. You are a conventionally trained medical doctor, transitioned to a naturopathic doctor and holistic doctor. And that in itself is quite an interesting story. You were telling me just beforehand, and I thought we need to share that story because that's quite powerful. Can you can you discuss a little bit about that? Because I think it helps to set the scene as to why
Yeah.
you are going on all these incredible podcasts, these massive podcasts at the moment, sharing this message and sharing how people can detoxify from spike.
Mm.
Can you share a little bit about your journey about what happened?
I can. So, I suppose in the beginning I was very naive, incredibly naive, but I was examining and looking at everything I could about COVID. And there were a few red flags that came out, which some of which I just kept puzzling me. Things like they said we're going to lock down, and I was like, hang on, that's a prison term. You don't lock
Mm.
down healthy people, you don't stop the economy, you don't stop the education, you don't affect people's mental health like that. What you do is you isolate and you help and you quarantine sick people and you look after the vulnerable. You work out who's vulnerable and you look after them particularly, but you don't close the surgeries. You don't, all the things that they were doing, which was just didn't make sense, like wearing the masks and keeping 6 feet apart and all of that stuff, and having a bubble of certain people you could see, and it was just, I felt it was all a nonsense. But and then I started seeing long COVID patients, and they were coming, and then the vaccine started being rolled out, and my long COVID patients who were getting better went and had a vaccine, and they come back much worse. And I
Interesting.
started seeing firsthand a lot of sort of suffering as a result of these injections. But by then I'd already had two because, as I said, I was forced into it. They said I wouldn't be able to see my patients, and I thought, no, I have to do that. And then so yeah, so I started to speak out because then I was seeing the studies that were being published on the harms, and they started to come
Mm.
through in the peer-reviewed journals and online and so on. And I was always taught by my mother that you have to tell the truth.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I started telling the truth, especially to my patients. So I was telling them what I was discovering, what I was seeing, and saying to them, please don't have any more. Please tell your family and friends. And then my clinic became fuller and fuller of people whose health was very compromised, who were suddenly having strange fits and all sorts of neurological issues, and people with neuropsychiatric issues. I had 3 patients who suddenly became suicidal.
Oh my
And
goodness.
if it wasn't for their wonderful families being on suicide watch the whole time, they wouldn't be here today. And so we were
Wow.
desperately looking for getting the spike protein out of the body. But anyway, I was doing things like lecturing doctors and professionals about the spikopathy and the pathophysiology of the spike protein. I remember talking I think it was in September 2021 about it in London at the London's Doctor Conference or something. And so I was starting to speak, publicly about it. And then but I wasn't given a very big platform until January 2023. And Nigel Farage wanted somebody to go
Mm.
on who was medical, who could talk about masks. Because there was some outbreak in China, and they said, the government hasn't stopped people coming into this country, and shouldn't we be doing that? And I said, well, what science are they following? I don't agree with their science. So I actually
Mm.
had 10 minutes, and I said the PCR test isn't COVID specific, and the masks don't
Right.
work, and all that. And it got a tremendous amount of positive feedback from the population, who
Mm.
were writing emails into GB News as a result of the program. A
GB
month
News has been
later,
great. Yeah.
yeah, so a month later, um, Nigel, what was his, sorry, Lawrence Fox invited me. Lawrence Fox said, I'd like 15 minutes with you, and I want to specifically talk about the vaccines. I said, are you sure? He said, yeah, I do. I really want to talk about it. So I thought, okay. And I said, I will only talk about what is in the public domain so that people can check that what I'm saying is right. And so we talked about the MHRA public assessment report. And if people look at that, it's online. You have to really search for it now. They're
Mm.
hiding it pretty well,
Mm.
but it's online if you look. MHRA public assessment report for the temporary authorization of the BioNTech
Wow.
injections. And pages 16 to 21 is usually full of safety data. It normally has toxicity studies, reassuring, blah, 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 whatever. And it said toxicity studies, none done.
I
Fertility
saw
studies,
this on
none
the
done.
Dog
You've seen
Victory
this.
podcast. Yeah, you
Yeah.
shared the same link, didn't you? Yeah.
Yes, I did. And there's
Extraordinary.
extraordinary fertility studies
Mm.
not done.
Mm.
Carcinogenicity studies not done. I mean, these are just basic principles. You wouldn't give anything to anybody unless you've checked that it's not going to give them cancer,
Yeah.
it's not going to make them infertile,
Right.
etc. And it's just, they hadn't done biodistribution studies, so they didn't see where it went in the body, but they kept saying it stays in the arm, and it
How was
doesn't.
that ever going to happen? How is biology able to work
Exactly.
like that? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, nonsense. And we now know that 16% goes to the testicles and the ovaries.
Wow.
I mean,
This is
that's
one of the first times I
horrific.
saw you speak, actually, yeah, on that particular
Yeah,
point.
yeah. So, a few days later, I get an email from the GMC
Damn.
saying, we've had a complaint against you from a colleague. This
And a
colleague,
GMC for anyone in America, can you explain what that is?
yes, General Medical Council. So I think it's the FDA is, or it's
Equivalent.
a board. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a board that grants you permission to have a license to practice medicine. So they give you a license, and you also have to go on the register. So there's two elements to it, and you can't practice without being on both, without having a license and being on the register. And they're supposed to uphold high medical standards. And there's a publication they put out every year that we're supposed to abide by, which is called Good Medical Practice. And in good medical practice, it says you must be honest, you must be open, you must be very open with your patients if you see there are dangers, and you must speak
Hmm.
out. It says this, right?
Interesting.
And it says you must report things when you can see that something could be a danger to other people, right? So that's what I was doing
Yeah.
by going on the
Living
television and
by
saying,
law.
actually, there are things that we're very concerned about. And then, of course, they come after you. so,
Oh my
so,
God. Yeah.
and the process is the punishment, because for 18 and a half months, I was pursued by the GMC, and had to read great long reports by various experts who were supposedly working in the same field as me, who, when you read their reports, you could tell they really didn't have much of a clue about the particular topic. And I wondered whether they were actually seeing the same kind of case as I was, because it didn't read like it was, that like they were. But anyway, and in the end, I had to have a lawyer and produce a report justifying everything I had done and said, and etc. And when it went in 2.5 months later, they then sent an email back and said, actually, we're not going to pursue this case any further, because they said, because it's not our place to tell you how to treat a new condition, for us to tell doctors how to treat patients, and especially when it's a new condition that everyone's trying to help. Now,
Mm.
that was the same at the beginning as it was at the end. So why did they give me 18 and a half months of hell? So the
Um,
process is the punishment.
that's an
Um,
interesting term.
yeah,
Yeah.
so the process is the punishment, and they want to ward off any other potential whistleblowers from saying anything. This is what we all believe anyway.
Right.
So they
Wow.
go after all the honest and doctors with integrity who have
Wow.
had the courage to speak out.
Thank you for having the courage to speak out
Oh, it's my
because
pleasure. I
you're
couldn't
few and
live any
far
other way.
between. Yeah.
Yes, but I couldn't operate any other way. And when I heard that they said, I was listening to the radio, and it was in 2021, and they'd done some of the rollout, and then they said, and now we're going to offer it to children. And I
Oh
burst
my
into
goodness.
tears.
I
I
was
burst into
yelling at the
tears.
screen. I was yelling
Yeah,
at the radio. I was like,
yeah,
this is, it was so
yeah.
obscene. And I thought, if
Oh,
anything wakes the world up, it's this right now.
I
You
know,
cannot
I know.
experiment on children. And then in
No.
America, they did it to babies.
Babies, I know.
Babies,
It's
6 months
hard.
old.
And now they are seeing an increase in mortality, infant mortality from the age of
Mm.
0 to 4. The children are dying at rates that they've never seen before. It's unbelievable in recent history. I mean, it's something like don't quote me on this, but it's something like 70% increase in mortality rates in these babies who, since 2021. And in the UK, we have 2,000 excess deaths a week going on still. So people who think, oh, COVID, that's passé, it's over. We've got over that. We haven't. We haven't, because the excess deaths keep on coming. The turbo cancers, the heart attacks, the strokes, the leukemias, the dementia, Parkinson's, all the things that it's the spike protein in the body is causing. It's still there.
That's the saddest thing and
Mm.
frustrating thing because the vaccine injuries aren't being reported as vaccine injuries. People aren't connecting the dots. There was a Harvard study done on the VAERS in the US. I'm sure you know about this that showed that less than 1% of vaccine injuries are ever reported. So now we've got injuries 5, 6 years later almost, and people aren't connecting the dots. So they're not registering the injuries as vaccines because there's no monitoring process for all these
You've
vaccine injuries,
you've
really.
absolutely got it in one, Neil. Honestly, you've got it in one. When people did originally have big reactions or adverse reactions to the vaccines, if it happened within 2 weeks of the injection, it was called COVID. If they died, it was called a COVID death,
Mm.
not a
Even if
vaccine
they fell
death.
off a building.
Yeah, so they were doing two things. The one thing they were
Mm.
doing was that, you're right, even people who committed suicide who had COVID on their death certificates. And
Yeah.
I know of cases. I had one patient whose husband was on a motorbike and died tragically in an accident, and he had COVID on his death certificate. I know another lady who had two very elderly parents who she was their carer. They were in their sort of mid late 90s, and they were very frail, and she was their only carer, and she didn't see anyone. She stayed housebound with them and had food delivered and things like that, so that they wouldn't be exposed. And when they both died of old age, basically, within a couple of weeks of each other, because
Yeah.
bless them, they've been together all their lives,
Yeah.
they both had COVID on their death certificates. She was livid. So they were
It's-
doing that, but then they were also putting COVID on people's death certificates when the vaccine had killed them.
Wow.
If they died within 2 weeks of the vaccine, they would have not vaccine death, but COVID death on there, which added to the numbers of that they claimed were dying from COVID.
Right. The
You know,
distortion is very real.
there's
It's
unbelievable. And the
yeah.
PCR test was set to be over 90% false positive. So when they said 100,000 cases, it was probably more like 3,000, and a lot of those were being flu and colds
Yeah.
because it wasn't COVID specific.
Oh my goodness. And
So yeah.
and what I was realizing fairly early on is people were being allowed to basically die because they were being
Ah,
the treatments were being withheld from them. We knew in the holistic
mm,
spaces very early on the profound ability of, well, mega dosage nutrient therapy, number one,
yeah,
ivermectin,
yeah,
hydroxychloroquine,
yeah.
CDS, MMS, the things that are very, very controversial. I remember sending an article to a friend of mine in April 2020. She called me and she was punching her chest. She could barely breathe. She was
Mm,
panicking. The antibiotics weren't working or anything. And I said, look, I calmed her down first of all. I said, look, you're good. You're safe. Just slow down your breathing. Let's get you into parasympathetic.
mm, mm,
Then I sent her a couple of articles from Macola and it was about mega dosage nutrient therapy. 24 or 48 hours, she messaged me and she said, Neil, you've saved my life. I just did
mm.
5 grams of vitamin C, and I believe
Yeah.
the other one was glutathione,
Okay.
intravenous. So,
Fantastic.
so
Fantastic.
and
Well, I
yeah.
was treating patients I saw with acute COVID with high doses of vitamin C orally, high doses of vitamin D, magnesium, selenium, zinc, quercetin, which is a mast cell
Mm,
stabilizer, and antihistamines. Now, all of these things can be bought over the counter. And I asked them to take the antihistamines, not one a day like it says on the box, but one 4 times a day, which is the maximum safe dose. And honestly, because I was in the mast cell activation space, working in that space since 2016,
mm,
when I saw a pathology report come out of Italy in the spring of 2020, and they said we don't quite know what's going on, the pathology in these patients. In these post-mortems, we've looked at their lungs, and in their lungs, we've seen a breakdown of membranes, we've seen some bleeding, we've seen some clotting, and we've seen hyperinflammation. Well, when they said that, I was like, it's not the infection that's killing them, it's the cytokine storm
mm,
that's come as a result of the infection that's killing them.
mm,
Because you have elastase 2 released by the mast cells that cause breakdown of membranes, you have heparin that causes hemorrhaging, you have other prothrombotic factors that come out and cause the clotting, and you've got the histamine causing hyperinflammation. And so I felt in my heart that it was the mast cells and their activation that was killing this particular group of patients. Now, mast cell activation syndrome is very common. It's in about 17 to 20% of the population. And it was
mm.
about 17 to 20% of the population who struggled with COVID. And I don't
Interesting.
think that's a coincidence. And most
Wow.
people, they got over it quite quickly. And patients were saying to me, all my family have had it. They're all getting better and I'm getting worse. And then when I take a history from them and say, okay, look, when you were a baby, did you have eczema, asthma, allergies? Have you ever had psoriasis? Blah, 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 IBS, chronic headaches, etc. They go, yes, 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 not to all of them, but to some of them, enough to make me think, right, you've got mast cell that's been undiagnosed and untreated. And now you've got COVID, you're going into a sort of massive ME, chronic fatigue syndrome kind of response, which is also MCAS. And what we need to do is give you
Mm.
the treatment for MCAS. So I started telling them to take those things, which you can buy over the counter. They all had them in their house, no big deal. And then I'd say, look, I need to speak to you tomorrow. I want to know how you are. And the next day they would ring me up and they'd say, do you know what? Within 4 hours, I stopped coughing, or within 8 hours, I stopped coughing. And today, I'm having a shower, I'm getting dressed. And yesterday, for 10 days, I've been in bed in with my pajamas on. And now I'm getting back to normal. And it was just giving them the right treatment. And it wasn't even in those days, I didn't know about ivermectin, and I didn't know about hydroxychloroquine. I was just doing what felt right to me and made
Yeah.
sense. And then I saw the therapeutic response and it was brilliant.
Incredible.
So people just could have done that. So I emailed Matt Hancock and urgent email. And I
Mm.
emailed Chris, I sent a message to Chris Whitty and I sent an email to number 10 Downing Street, I think, and to the head of the Royal College of GPs. And
Brilliant.
I thought that my phone would be red hot.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
not a single call. Not a single call.
That is extraordinary. Yeah.
Well,
It
because they
really
wanted
shows.
everyone to be sick and get the vaccine, didn't they?
Right.
There's somebody saying, "Oh no, you can buy this over the counter and get some. You've all got antihistamines in your cupboard. Just take a few, you'll be all right." That sort of went against their plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
That's the really challenging part for a lot of people to get their head around, isn't it? That there was some kind of greater
Yeah.
plan because it's that challenges our beliefs at the most, our most hard.
Fundamental level, yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like wait, that just and our worldview ultimately, it goes
Yeah.
that deep because
Yeah, it does.
we think that the people, the institutions, the our governments that we're supposedly protecting us aren't, and there's so much
No.
evidence showing us that that's not actually happening, which is so sad.
Yeah.
Um, you're one of the first people who's talked about mast cell activation, actually, and I saw you talking about this on the Del Big Tree podcast, The High Wire.
Yes. Yes.
Um, could we talk about that for a moment? Then I'd love you to explain how the mRNA works, because no one explains it as well as you do.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
so can we talk
Pleasure.
about mast cell
Yeah.
first? What is that?
Yes. Yes. So this is a genetic condition. So it runs in families and it occurs in between 17 and 20% of the population. So it can happen in men and women, but 80% of the people who suffer with the symptoms generally are female. 30% of them get interstitial cystitis, and 80% of them have also got hypermobility.
Mm,
Okay, so we see it. The mast cells are a very important part of our immune system. They are mostly static, so they're not in the bloodstream floating around. They're generally in the tissues, and they're underneath wherever our bodies can be exposed to the outside world. So they're under the skin. They line the sinuses, they line the nasal passages, the lungs, the gut from head to toe, all the way through.
wow.
Um, and the lungs, I've said that. And so anywhere that we can be exposed to chemicals or pathogens of any sort, the mast cells are there, and I liken them to bouncers in a club. They're just inside the door, and they're going to, try and make sure that the unsavory people don't get into the club. But the problem with mast cell activation syndrome is this group of people have mast cells that just also keep the good guys out, and they don't know when
Mm,
they should just be ignoring somebody and letting them pass through. And so they react to even things that are non-toxic and should be fine. Okay.
interesting.
So and when they react, they release cytokines, and there are now supposed to be 2,000 cytokines, which are very potent chemicals that they release into the body, which is supposed to help the body fight that particular toxin or infection. But because these mast cells are so overvigilant and so overreactive, they swamp the body with these chemicals, which then cause inflammation. So people, and it will show up in different ways in different people. So, but usually they have at least two systems affected. So people will have IBS plus chronic headaches, or IBS and fibromyalgia, or they'll have asthma and psoriasis, or they'll have eczema and chronic headaches, something like that. It also causes very heavy, painful periods in women. We think it's associated with endometriosis. It can cause cyst
Mm.
formation, so polycystic ovaries,
Yeah.
cysts in the liver, cysts in the kidneys, cysts on the thyroid, often very much associated.
Interesting.
When these mast cells release histamine, it causes inflammation, and it's the inflammation in two or more systems that enables us to make the diagnosis. And it's a very interesting space to work in because very few doctors still know about it. And it's getting better because of long COVID, because the conversation is out there about long COVID and mast cells, thank goodness, and MCAS. So now more and more
Mm.
doctors and patients, thankfully, know about it. But there's still a huge amount of people who do not know anything about it. And so when these patients go to see their GP, and by the way, often the GPs in the UK say you can only bring one symptom at a time.
No way.
Yeah. So
Wow.
now patients with MCAS
Come
could
back next
have,
week for your other one.
yeah, it could take 30 weeks to tell the whole story,
Jeez.
with weekly
Mm.
appointments. So it's a nonsense. And also, consultants are generally sort of siloed into such as deep specialisms that they don't look at the whole body holistically.
Mm.
So these people often have POTS. They'll go and see a wonderful cardiologist who's great at doing the tilt test and diagnosing their POTS, but they may not ask them, well, do you have IBS as well? Because actually it goes together. It's all part of the same syndrome. And it's very easy to help these patients if they start to understand what they've got. So
Mm.
they will have spent years telling people about this pain or that symptom, and they'll have been told you're a hypochondriac, all your tests are normal, we don't know what to do for you, go away. I had one patient tell me that she saw two different doctors in the same surgery, and they said to her, stop coming to see us about this because we don't know what to do.
Wow.
No,
My
it's like,
goodness.
my goodness, there's an admission of ignorance. Why don't you look it up? Why don't you try and learn and
Yeah.
find somebody who does know what to do, and then you can learn and you can help more patients. So it has been estimated that maybe 30 to 40% of consultations in general practice are all to do with MCAS.
Interesting.
And yet
Interesting.
so many people don't know about it, and those patients don't get the proper help. So they have decades of feeling really pretty crappy.
Interesting. This
Mm.
explains some of the symptoms of people very close to me, actually.
Mm.
So
And then,
the
sorry,
sorry.
go on. No, I was
Oh,
going to say, and
oh,
then uh,
you
then what we do,
go.
is we advise them to go on a low histamine diet. And I don't mean completely histamine free because that's too few things, but there are lists like whatthebleakcanieat.com, and you can
Mm.
get a list of low histamine and no histamine foods. It comes to about 200 foods. You can have a very interesting, delicious, healthy, no processed foods, no leftovers, organic. All this is all important for MCAS,
Mm.
especially. I mean, for all of us, but and then you want to give them, make sure they haven't got any nutrient deficiencies, as you're very good at all of this stuff, and then also to help them. And I'm not saying they should go on these forever, but through the crises, through the flares, antihistamines, type 1 and type 2 antihistamines, some mast cell stabilizers, such as ketotifen or
Mm.
rupatadine, and particularly if they have gut issues, sodium chromoglycate, brilliant. That's a great one for the gut.
I'll
And
put these below the
and
podcast.
yeah,
Anyone else?
lovely. And then some people, that's enough. That's enough for everything to settle and for improvement within days. They go onto a low histamine diet and they sort of feel much better within days. And others, we have to go on to give things like LDN, low dose naltrexone, which is very anti-inflammatory, and that can be very, life-changing for some people. So this is what we do, and so it's a very satisfying condition
Yeah.
to treat. Not always straightforward and easy, but satisfying because you can you can trick. I know about it because my youngest daughter has it, and she
Mm.
became very, very unwell in 2016. So we couldn't find anyone to help her. So I had to do a deep dive and think, wow, what's going on with her? I've got to sort it out. It's on my shoulders. So I did, and I found a fantastic professor, Vic Kular, who has got podcasts and things on it. Who's a urogynecologist in London, and he was the only man I could find, the only doctor I could find who seemed to know anything about it. And he was wonderful and helped us. And then once you know something, you can't unknow it. So I was then diagnosing three, four, five people a week with MCAS when they were coming to see me for other things. Because at that point,
Mm.
I was a women's health specialist and I
Yes, I
was
saw
doing
this.
a lot
Yeah.
of contraception and stuff. So they'd come and say, I want some contraception. And I'd say, well, I need to take a history to know which ones it would be a choice for you, which ones to recommend for you. And I'd take their history and I would ask them about their gut and I'd ask them about their headaches and all this. And they'd go, gosh, you're really interested in all of this. And I go, yep. And then I would say, I think I know what you've got. And they'd be telling me about their, all these symptoms. And I'd say, I think I know what you've got. And I'd touch their arm and they'd burst into tears because they were so relieved that somebody, after all decades of not knowing what the problem was and thinking they were going mad or they were a hypochondriac, whatever, it's a very lonely place for patients.
Oh my goodness, I imagine. So they finally get seen and heard.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I go, and I know what we can do about this. And I'd say, please
Mm.
do this, that, and the other. They'd go away, they'd do it, they'd come back 6 weeks later and they would say, you've changed my life. Thank you.
Incredible.
Just like the testimonials on your website.
Oh, thank you.
Which is,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's interesting. So 17 to 20% suffer from master cell
Mhm.
activation. And that's a similar figure percentage of the population who suffered the most from COVID.
Yes.
That's very interesting. Because I'd
Mm.
obviously heard about the cytokine storm fairly early on. So most people would have the cytokine storm. People with that would have like a whole other
Yeah.
level of cytokine storm.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
Wow. Yeah.
their mast cells are not only do they overreact, they are very, very jumpy for
Interesting.
even lower levels of problems. They are very jumpy, and
And
they
add
also
EMF to the, sorry, I was just going to
oh
say add
yeah
EMF to that. That's a whole other
oh
thing. And then
uh,
5G was launched in
there's no getting
2019.
away. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yes. What a coincidence. So it's just like, yeah, there's so much going on.
Mhm.
But if any clinicians out there, people treating people can get their heads around MCAS, they will be so happy that they have because they will be able to help so many of their patients and of their family. And in fact, when I was thinking I think the 20% who are having difficulty with COVID are the MCAS patients, undiagnosed and untreated. Some colleagues in America, I didn't realize at that point, had written a paper which was published on the 10th of September 2020. And it was
Mm.
published in the International Journal of Infectious Diseases. And it's
Yeah.
Dr. Lawrence Afrin and Molderings and Weinstock. And these colleagues had written this paper and it was called could the hyperinflammation of COVID be associated with MCAS or something like that?
That was
And they
2020
published that.
September.
So, yeah, it was the 10th of September 2020 in the International Journal of Infectious Diseases.
Okay, so that's kind of a year into it. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Uh,
just but before
yeah.
yeah, it was and that's when we were looking at long COVID and they said
Yeah.
that's right, could acute COVID and long COVID be sort of based on MCAS basically? And
Interesting.
yeah,
And
yes.
and I wish they'd stop calling it long COVID and just call it
Oh,
symptom of spike protein
yes. So
infestation.
it's actually yeah, it shouldn't be. It's a very good way of hiding things
Yeah.
because a lot of my patients who've got vaccine injuries are told by their GPs you've got long COVID,
Right. And
right?
that's
And
been going
then
around the holistic space for ages. If you've got a, yeah, that very same
yeah,
thing.
yeah, exactly.
Everything's being blamed on long COVID.
Yeah, everything.
So
Yeah.
And we can test for the spike protein. So that's a good segue to talk about how the spike protein works, because there's the spike protein
Yes.
in the vaccine, and
Yeah.
there's the spike protein in the virus, and then there's the spike
Yes.
protein which is created
The
by the vaccine. So
yes.
I know
Yes.
you were injured by the AstraZeneca. We talk
Yes.
about mRNA.
Yeah. So the messenger RNA is a little piece of ribbon that has got a code on it. And the code is to make the spike protein. But it's not to make the spike protein of the infection. It's to make a much stronger and slightly different spike protein that is more toxic. So I'll just rest that there for a moment.
Let it land.
So
Yeah,
yes, let that
it's
land. So
we've
it
we've never had this. We've never
no,
had this technology before these vaccines.
no,
We've never
no,
had the genetic instruction for our own cells to manufacture a pathogen.
exactly. So it went into the arm, and AstraZeneca, Pfizer had, I think, 13 billion pieces of messenger RNA in one dose. AstraZeneca had 50, I think, and Moderna has 100
My goodness.
billion, 100 billion, 100 billion,
My goodness.
50 billion, right? So a lot. And these little pieces of messenger RNA would travel through the body and then enter cells. And when they entered the cells, the Pfizer and the Moderna are worse because they had lipid nanoparticles carrying
Mm.
these pieces. And the lipid nanoparticles were designed to deliver the messenger RNA into the cell and through the blood-brain barrier.
Through the blood-brain barrier. That's the scary bit. Because
And through the
the spike protein from the virus itself wouldn't go through the blood-brain barrier, would it?
no, no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. And it would go with the lipid nanoparticles. It will also go through the placenta,
I've seen
right?
horrific stuff on the placenta being affected by
Oh,
spike protein.
terrible. So
The whole
yeah.
color of it changes.
Oh, well,
I
we've
mean,
there's
that's
been
big.
a massive increase in intrauterine deaths because the placenta just gives up the ghost, can't last. And
It, it,
yeah, it's absolutely tragic. Well, it's criminal.
yeah.
Anyway, and then yeah, so this piece of messenger RNA goes into the cells. It then goes to the ribosome of the cell, and the ribosome of the cell is the protein making mechanism of the cell. And it's there to keep us healthy and make loads of proteins because every single cellular metabolic activity, every biochemical activity that happens inside our cells needs proteins. So it's making loads and loads of protein to keep our cell functioning and healthy. And then suddenly it's told, no, no, don't make those proteins, make this protein, make this spike protein. So
Mhm.
we become deficient in the proteins we should be making. That's the first thing. So the poor cell is now under duress and strain because it's not making all the things it should be making. And instead, it's making trillions and trillions of the spike protein, which is a non-human, toxic, poisonous substance that we have never had is the worst substance we've ever had in the human body. I mean,
It's it's
it's terrible.
unbelievable. There's no words that I can use to describe that. It's
Yeah.
we've never experienced this. What was the argument? What was the mainstream argument about how this would protect us?
I know it sounds so logical, doesn't it? Because they're one breath they're saying the spike protein in the virus in the infection is really toxic and terrible, and that's what's making you have myocarditis and all this illness, and it could kill you. And then they say, "Oh, I know, we'll make the spike protein in the body."
Right.
It's like, well, excuse me,
Well,
did I miss something? Was something
yeah,
lost in translation?
we're
Because
going to
it
turn
doesn't
you
make sense.
doesn't.
It doesn't make sense. They said, oh, it'll stimulate your antibody response, and then next time you come across it, your body will recognize it. Actually, the opposite has happened. The more injections people have, the more they get tolerance to the infection and the less they respond. It causes immunosuppression. It makes all the T lymphocytes merge together and forms something called syncytium, which is like a blancmange instead of separate cells. So they're
Mm,
pretty useless. So we know people are immunosuppressed. Loads of people are getting shingles. They're getting,
mm,
their cold sores are coming all the time.
yeah.
They can't kick throat infections. They get pneumonia, but lots higher increase in sepsis and so on. So we know people are immunosuppressed from that's telling us that. We can see on their blood tests. their white blood cell counts are down.
Yeah.
We know they're immunosuppressed.
That's happened to a
And
member of my family, by the way,
that's it.
right now.
Yeah.
As well as I told you
Oh,
earlier as well, my mum was injured badly
yeah.
for the vaccine.
Yeah.
In addition,
Terrible. And so it didn't make sense. And absolutely opposite to what they claim, and they still claim
they're
is
still claiming
happening,
it
has
because they're
happened.
still pushing
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. They're still pushing it and they're still claiming it. And that to me is unbelievable. I mean, I can't believe how a doctor can be looking after people and seeing his patients, his 2,500 patients, however many he's got, becoming really quite sick, and some of them dying suddenly and unexpectedly, lots of cancers, all sorts of, and often there are practices which have 12,000 patients, 10,000 patients. They must be seeing all of this.
Yeah.
One in 800, they reckon, died from the vaccine, one in 800. So the
That's
more times you
significant.
had it, that would reduce each time, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Be one
Or
in
increase.
800, then one in
Yeah.
400. So,
Yeah.
people are
Wow.
playing Russian roulette. And the fact that these doctors and clinics are seeing this tragedy unfold and then in the same breath saying to people, come and have your COVID jab. I
It's
can't believe
it's
it.
it's it's
It's,
it's unexplainable from any
it's
rational mind.
staggering,
Yeah.
staggering.
And the fact that they're
Yeah.
giving this to children and babies still in America, even though RFK is in, he's clearly got his hands tied. He would have stopped every
Yeah.
single injection on day one. He's got farmers
Yes.
got him
Yeah, I think he's
tied
doing
up.
what he can,
Yeah.
as you say, with his hands tied behind his back. But he's, small steps. Let's hope. Let's hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so the good news is, which is why you're here, I mean, one of the
Yes.
reasons why you're here, is that you
Yes.
found a solution to this. I
I
mean,
did.
and as we were saying
Yeah.
just before the podcast, as the darkness gets darker, the light gets lighter, and the light is always superseding the darkness. And thankfully, thankful to people like you, to professionals like you, who are discovering these solutions to help us from these crazy initiatives we've seen in the public domain. So can you
Yeah.
talk to us about augmented NAC
Yes. Well, I
and your
am not.
experience, maybe?
Well, oh yes. I can't take any credit for Augmented NAC. The only thing I can take credit for is putting it on the map, out in the podcasts and things like that, and telling people about it. But there's an incredible group of people called the Zero Spike Project, and they have a not-for-profit organization. They started studying all things COVID from 2020, and they have this amazing woman working with them called Dr. Loretta Bolgan, and she's a pharmacist and an incredible scientist. She's written about a 2,000-page document on all things COVID at the biomolecular level, cellular level of what it does in the body, how to treat it, long COVID, everything. It's all there. It's amazing.
Mm,
And that can be seen on their website, zerospike.org. And so she noticed that NAC, N-acetylcysteine, a supplement, could detach the spike protein from the ACE2 receptors. Now, ACE2 receptors are everywhere. They're at the cell wall level, so they're on the membrane of the mast cells. There's many ACE2 receptors, so it's no great surprise that when the spike protein attacks the mast cells, they respond.
mm,
It's also the ACE2 receptors are in all our organs, including in our brain and along all of our arteries and vessels.
mm,
So if you can imagine little tiny spike proteins sticking like little hairs attached to the ACE2 receptors, where our arteries should be lovely and smooth, and they're now got little furry level of spike protein everywhere. This is not good. So she noticed that the NAC could separate the spike protein from the ACE2 receptors. So she was like, okay, if it can do that, I wonder what it can do to the spike protein itself. So they
mm,
looked under the electron microscope and put NAC with the spike protein. They'd actually done it with about 200 different supplements, trying to find one that would break up the spike protein.
mm.
Because we've never evolved making and producing this toxin, we have no way of clearing it out of the body. And I think that's a really important message to get out to people. People think it's just going to go away because it was 4 years, 5 years since they had the jab. But unfortunately, your body can't clear it. So it's
And
still
the
there.
instruction's not turning off either, is it?
Well, there's no off switch necessarily.
Yeah.
They didn't look at that. They didn't check that there was an off switch. Why would you,
We're
you
going to
know?
turn off the factory in 3 months
Yeah,
or
yeah,
24 hours.
yeah.
That doesn't
Or
happen.
oh, oops, it never switches off, you know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, just unbelievable.
We have to turn off the factory and we have to detoxify the spike protein, basically.
Absolutely,
All we can do
absolutely.
at the moment is detoxify the spike
The
protein.
spike protein,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, so they took, as I say, over 200 different supplements and mixed them all with the spike protein, which you can buy on the internet for research purposes. And they were looking under the electron microscope. And the only one, because of Loretta saying, well, NAC seems to be quite special, let's look at that. The NAC weakened a couple of the bisulfide bonds in the complex spike structure.
Hmm.
And it made it sort of uncurl a little bit, but then within a day or a day and a half, it curled back up again. So it was helping, but it was only really sorting out maybe 3%, 5%, 12% maximum of the spike protein. And they were working with some quantum physicists who said, okay, we need to give, this is an exciting phase, space to be working in. Um, we need to give the electrons in those molecules, um, we need to give them stability because everything has instability.
Interesting.
Okay. So
Okay.
we've got, if we look down with a microscope, a more and more amplified, magnified microscope at our cells, and then within the cells and within that and within that, we're mostly just fresh air, which is mostly space.
Mm.
But and everything has got electrons and neutrons and so on going around, and
Yeah.
and photons, etc. And they're unstable, they're excitable, and their stability isn't great. So they're all doing their own thing within the molecule. And they said, well, give it all coherence. Let's make them all absolutely uniform.
Wow. I didn't know
And
that.
make them
Okay.
stable. Yeah. So they made a machine to make them stable. And then when they mixed it with the spike protein, I think they were dancing around the lab when they saw this because they had, the eureka moment. They had found it. They saw it enter the spike protein structure, the NAC, the augmented NAC, and literally blow it apart,
Oh my
shatter
word.
it. And then all the little pieces, all the metabolites, all those little bits could be picked up by the liver and then passed out in the urine.
No way.
Yeah,
Wow.
so then they developed a urine spike test so that they could look using mass spectrometry at the contents of the urine, and they could see were the bits of spike before they gave the augmented NAC in the urine, and the answer is no. And what about when somebody's taken one every day for 8 days? Let's do it on day 8, and the answer is yes, it's full of these metabolites from the spike protein.
That's fast.
Yes, and I know it's fast. It's incredibly fast. So when I had the vaccine injury because I felt compelled, forced, whatever, to take 2 vaccines, this within an hour of the second one, I had a tremor in my right hand, etc., etc.,
Mm.
and all the things I described earlier. And I'd spent 2 years looking for something to clear the spike protein, not just for my patients, but for me too. So I had a very big incentive. And we were doing things like, intermittent fasting and cold showers and all these things to try and increase autophagy and
Mm.
melatonin and stuff like that. Anyway, but when we sent blood samples off to look for spike protein, not antibodies, but for spike protein, they were still there. They were still high. Things we were doing weren't really cutting the mustard. I was given a bottle of the augmented NAC, and I started taking one 3 times a day the first day. The next morning when I woke up, I did not have a tremor in my right hand,
That's extraordinary.
which I'd had for two
Mm.
years.
Two
I couldn't
years.
believe it.
Wow.
I'd had that tremor for 2 years and I could not believe it. It was like, I did not expect it to work that quickly, you know? It
That's
was like,
so
oh,
fast.
right. And so I don't think it wasn't placebo because I wasn't expecting it. And this was a neurological problem. And it had gone. And also overnight, the eczema that was on the nape of my neck had completely healed up, completely gone.
That's incredible.
My
Wow.
brain felt less foggy. I had more energy. I felt amazing. The rosacea started to clear. I never had the peripheral epilepsy again. I never, and I really, the burning tongue never happened again. The narcolepsy went.
Staying
It
away
was
from
incredible. It was
that is
incredible.
that is incredible. You know what? My one of my clients started it about a week ago,
Yes.
and we've been together for a couple of months.
Yeah.
And we've been working across every pillar, the physical, mental, emotional, energetic. We've been doing all of the things, getting better and
Brilliant.
better and better and better.
Yeah.
The final bit was the spike protein because we kept on getting indicators that we couldn't do the McCullough protocol because she'd have a reaction. So her nervous system was too sensitive. So
Yeah.
and as part of the McCullough protocol that also doesn't work well with blood pressure medication, and she was on pressure
Mm.
medication, which I'm trying to get her off with her doctor approval.
Yes.
Anyway, we had to kind of pause on the McCullough protocol and do the other stuff. And then we started on the NAC, the augmented NAC. And she was on the on our call on Monday. She was holding it up, going, "It might just be placebo, but something's happening in my chest," because she's been having huge restriction with her breathing.
Right.
So she's also got low voltage in the chest because of various other reasons.
Mhm.
For her, that's where it showed up. It all started around the time of of COVID and the vaccine. So for her, she's feeling very promising about
Brilliant.
this.
Brilliant. Now, the one thing that's great about the augmented NAC is it passes through the blood-brain barrier.
Mm,
So it goes into your brain and it pulls the spike protein out of the brain.
that's incredible. One of my
And
clients
they
has got Parkinson's, and I sent her this video.
uh
As soon as I saw that one that I posted, which went fairly viral on Instagram, I sent
yeah,
it to my client with Parkinson's because she was one of those who took a lot of them.
yeah.
And I sat down with her, I don't know,
Mm,
a year or so ago and explained to her how it worked.
mm.
Anyway, hopefully she's going to receive that because she actually, we kind of stopped our series and then I heard through a mutual friend that she actually went ahead and had another vaccine.
Oh,
And I saw her recently and she's just, yeah. So
so much worse.
hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully I can, yeah, it's one of those can't help everyone kind of situation.
No, no,
And
no.
hopefully we can. Hopefully you
Yes.
might see this. She's on my Facebook, so
Yes.
maybe she'll
I
see.
hope
Yeah.
so. I hope
So
so. I mean, my prayer is that everybody who had COVID or the injections or was shed upon, which basically means all of us, right? That everybody does the augmented NAC. And there
mm,
are other protocols out there, but they do not work. They might reduce the clotting, the clots, the microclots. They might reduce some inflammation, but I haven't seen another protocol that actually clears the spike protein out.
for anyone who wants the augmented NAC, I'll share a link below, and you can use the discount code Vitality Code for 10% off.
Great.
Have you
And
tried the McCullough protocol? Yes.
many of my patients come to me already having done it for a year or longer. Yeah.
Interesting.
And then
Interesting.
now I know he's just added NAC to his protocol because it was
I
three.
saw
It
that
was,
on his site. Yeah.
yes. So he's recognizing that NAC has some very important functions, but his is not augmented.
Interesting.
Mm.
I got goosebumps when you're talking about the electricity and the electrons because
Yeah,
during COVID, I thought no standard protocol is going to be able to get rid of this vaccine. Like we can't detox the vaccines like we can with some of the childhood ones, which injured me. That's why I had eczema for 30 years. I've had a number of different practitioners confirm this as well as my intuition. But
yeah,
it's a lot easier to clear those injections from the past or the other more kind of commonplace injections than this type.
yeah,
And I thought energy medicine is going to be the way forward. And you just talked about it, how it's at least a part of what
yeah,
you're talking about.
yeah, absolutely.
And
And doing that, sorry, doing that to the NAC makes it much more powerful NAC per se. I mean, just full stop. So ordinary NAC, 15 to 25% is absorbed through the gut. So when you take a 200 milligram capsule, you're only going to get 15 to 25% of that into your body.
mm,
And the augmented NAC at 60 to 80% is absorbed, right?
interesting.
So this uniformity of the electrical activity within the molecule makes it much more bioavailable to the body. So it goes in, and then it increases the effectiveness of vitamin C by a factor of 7.
Interesting. Which is essential in
Seven,
clearing the
which is,
inflammation.
yeah, and that's 7 times
Mm.
more than ordinary NAC. And then also the glutathione, it increases the levels of glutathione by a factor of 40,
Wow. Do you
which is just amazing.
And do you assist it? I mean, we talked about LifeWave just beforehand. Do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
assist the augmented NAC with any binders or glutathione or anything like that? I think I saw you talk about selenium assisting
yeah.
it.
Yes. So sometimes patients can have a minority can feel a little bit unwell when they go on to the D-spike protocol, so the augmented NAC, and some of them can be a bit deficient in selenium,
Mm,
molybdenum, and manganese. So I say to them, please make sure you're taking a good multi-nutrient so, we
great.
can cover that first. A lot of my patients will have ordinary NAC for a week and a
Mm,
binder in the afternoon to detox their liver. Because once they start
interesting.
breaking up the spike protein, they're going to ask their liver to work quite hard.
Right, right. So
Okay. Because it's
the
going to be
exits have to be ready.
yeah, you have
Yeah.
to, get that nicely lined up. Now, when I took it, I didn't do that. I just went straight for 1, 3 times a day. I was so thrilled to have it. I wanted to try it straight away. And I had a detox reaction on day 6. It was very
Oh.
funny. I was in a clinic face to face with my patients, and I suddenly thought, God, it's hot in here. And my face was getting redder and redder and redder. My neck
Mm,
and my face were red for about 36 hours. It wasn't painful, it was just uncomfortable. I felt,
mm.
like radiant. And I contacted them and I said, this has happened. And they said, this is a detox reaction. You're getting rid of so much spike. Your body has
Has
given
to
this
come through your
reaction.
skin. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
saw,
my
sorry.
yeah, yes, no, it's okay. So my husband, when he went on it, the next day after 24 hours, he woke up with a headache and he never wakes up with a headache. He had
Mm,
breakfast, then he had to go back to bed because he felt really rough. And it lasted about 4 hours. And I found him in bed and I was like, oh, what's going on? And he said, oh, I just felt so terrible. I had to crawl back into bed. It's okay. I said, have you been drinking lots of water? No. So I gave him lots of water. And he got up and had a late lunch. And then that night we had a dinner party. So he was fine. He rallied
no
completely.
way.
And that was his detox reaction. You know,
That's not a bad detox
that
reaction.
was all right. Yeah, that
What?
was better than mine, really. But it was
Yeah.
fine. So then I started thinking, well, maybe I should ask patients to take it a little bit more slowly because we just jumped, both feet in,
Mm,
and to do the ordinary NAC for a week plus the activated charcoal or
mm,
toxaprevent, zeolite or something like that,
yeah.
or chlorella, spirulina
Mm,
in the afternoon and
mm.
do that for a week. And then maybe try one a day for a couple of days, then go to one twice a day for a couple of days, then one 3 times a day for 3 months, and then one a day forever afterwards. Because
I heard
if
that.
they're continuing to make it, they
Factory
need
is
to
still
get,
there.
yeah, if the factory's still open for
Yeah.
business, they need to keep the conveyor belt going of getting rid of
Mm,
it.
yeah.
Also, you could find yourself in a queue and some old lovely biddy in front of you who has been diligently going for her
Taking
vaccines.
25 boosters.
Yeah, it's going to breathe all over you and you're going to get the spike protein. Especially when I go in an airplane, I take one 3 times a day for a couple of days because the air is circulating round and round and you can
Interesting. Yeah,
get your
yeah. We
bottom
can't get away
dollar.
from it, can we?
No,
Um,
well, we can. We can. We're gonna win
yeah.
this. We're gonna defeat this thing. We are.
Oh, we are.
We
Absolutely.
are.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to mention quickly that detox reaction that you had.
Yes.
I have seen that with a friend of mine who I supported in reversing stage 2 lymphoma a few years ago. I can't claim I cured him. There's a
No.
few of us on his team and he did the work.
Yeah.
He did all the
Yes.
detox. He was turning up
Brilliant.
at breath work every single morning because I lead a
Yes.
breath work group Monday to Friday.
Yes. Yeah.
And he was bright red. It was all over his face, all over his arms. And I was watching him thinking he's really going through it, but his energy was fine. He's
Yes.
laughing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's got stage 2 lymphoma, he's got a recent diagnosis.
Oh.
He's thoroughly detoxifying his body to get rid of all the inflammation which is causing the cancer. And we're seeing it in his face. And a bunch of us were just witnessing him go
Yeah.
through this detox
Yeah.
over a couple of
Amazing.
months. And then he 2 months, completely gone, completely healed.
Wow.
He
Wow.
detoxified every angle of health, the physical, the mental, the
Wow.
emotional, the energetic. So
Wow.
seeing him detox like that, because we've all heard
Mm.
of detox reactions, it's just useful to know, isn't it? Because what you just
Yeah.
described is a
Yeah.
perfectly healthy response. And often it's our skin that's showing us
Yeah.
that we're
Yeah.
detoxifying.
Yeah.
And often if the liver's congested, if the exits are congested, it's gonna
Yeah.
come out of our skin more.
Yeah,
So
exactly, exactly. You mentioned LifeWave patches, and I see
mm,
LifeWave patches and Augmented NAC being perfect partners because
interesting.
the you want to detox with the Augmented NAC
Yeah.
and you want to clear all of that toxin out of your body. And then you want to help your stem cells activate to
Mm.
heal any damage done to any of your organs.
Brilliant.
And
X39
I just
LifeWave. Yeah.
X39. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that
And
is
I
all
think,
about light. And I see in your
yes,
profile, you're all about light and biomob. What do you call it? Light and biomodulation?
photo biomodulation.
That's sorry, photo
Yes,
biomodulation. Of course. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I
And
think light is, well, when you hear David
everything.
Schmidt, the inventor of LifeWave, talking about light and all the things he's got planned and what he's got in the pipeline, and also, I don't know if you've come across the water machine
I've
that he's
just
made.
discovered it. Yeah.
Oh wow, I
And
can't wait to get one. I
I
can't
want to
wait
get
to get
one. At
one.
the moment, I've got my Echo that goes with me
Yeah,
everywhere, which is molecular
brilliant,
hydrogen. But
brilliant.
what was I going to say? Did you see him talk about how to detoxify the spike protein or the VAX early on in 2021,
No, I
2022?
didn't. I didn't come across him. I've only known about Lifeway for the last year,
Oh,
so
okay.
I didn't come across him. But I have heard him talking about how, to I didn't hear him talk about detox actually. What did he suggest? Do you remember?
Well, he might not have called it detox, but
Okay.
he's one of the first people who showed a live blood analysis of people who'd received the
Oh,
COVID vaccine. Did you
wow.
see on my Instagram profile? It's pinned. Someone who'd had 7 injections. Did you see her blood?
No, I didn't. No, I
It,
didn't. I'll
it's
have a look.
live
Oh,
blood
it's
is another terrible
horrendous.
story.
The rouleau is
Oh my
just,
goodness. All the cells are
no.
gathering in
Yeah,
massive clumps, and she
yeah.
had Alzheimer's.
Oh, bless.
So 3 days
She just
with
didn't have any oxygen going to her
no,
brain.
yeah, no, yeah, exactly. Immune system's off, inflammation of the brain, getting attacked left, right, and center. Anyway, there's a nice ending to that story because
Yeah,
there's the
yeah,
guy in Simi Valley who'd also get on well with, who does this dark field microscopy and then cleans the blood
yeah.
over a period of days using a myriad of, he doesn't call them treatments, he calls them approaches to clean the
Okay.
blood. And
Yes.
3 days later, she walked out with no symptoms of Alzheimer's, and she's back to normal, doing all of her things. And
Wow.
her hobby
Wonderful.
is traveling. She's late
Wonderful.
60s.
She's got her
So
life back.
she had spike protein induced
Mm.
blood destruction,
And
which is what it
the
looked like.
terrifying thing is that if she's just seen an allopathic doctor, she would have been given the diagnosis of Alzheimer's and that would have been it.
And then drugs.
And then drugs. And she
Yeah.
would have never ever got better. And actually,
Mhm.
he cleaned the blood, got rid of the rouleau bodies, made sure the oxygenation was happening, detoxify her, and she's back. I
Yeah.
mean, how many other people are out there who could respond in the same way?
Exactly. And start, yeah.
Mm.
That's why I'm doing podcasts like this, because I want people to know that there are solutions to these things. And
Yes,
we just need to
brilliant.
look in different places.
That's
I think
brilliant.
most of us know that something was very weird about this whole COVID time. And if we can listen to that heart intelligence that you mentioned earlier, interestingly, I've been talking about the heart intelligence earlier, and
Mm.
intuition and gut. It's a very loud intelligence that we can listen to. And I think a lot
Uh,
of us were hearing it, but the brain was probably taking over a lot of the time.
yeah, our heart emits much more energy than our brain,
Yeah,
much more energy. And if you look at the biofields and we are connected all on a grid. I know we are. We can connect to each other just by sending
absolutely.
people
Are you familiar with
messages on a
HeartMath?
grid. No.
Oh, you're going to love this. They've been
Uh,
studying the heart-brain connection or the heart-brain connection, but also the
yes.
heart-brain connection
Yeah, yes.
since the 90s. And
Yes.
they've been studying the direction of communication, how the heart works. There's 40,000 sensory neurites in the heart, brain-like cells in the heart, which
Amazing.
act independently from the head brain. And they've shown exactly the direction of communication. Most communication goes heart to the brain, not the other way around. And of course, the blood. So it goes heart, gut, brain.
Yeah,
So the
lovely.
logical mind, the learned intellect, the programmed intellect is the last brain to actually get the information. And yet most of us are still using this, not this. So
Yeah,
the more that we listen to this and this, we
the
can cut
better.
through all the layers of nonsense and find solutions like
Absolutely.
right here.
We have to listen to our gut instincts, don't we? We
Oh my
really do. I
goodness,
mean,
we have to.
these phrases are there for a
Real.
reason. You know, they're developed for a reason. It's amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. What does your heart say? Follow your heart. And
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it
Oh,
in
powerful.
yeah, and
But it's exciting though that we're talking
yeah,
about this kind of stuff now, isn't it? So what was that called? Heart map?
heart math.
Math.
So
Okay.
math. In America, they like to remove the S.
Okay. Yes, they
So
do, don't they? Heart math.
so they say yeah, heart math dot e. I think it used to be dot org, but it's now dot com.
Okay.
It's an incredible site. Heart brain coherence is something I do with my clients and with my breathwork
Lovely.
recently.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's
That's great.
what it does for the nervous system and how it regulates heart rate variability is next level. So
Okay. That's
yeah.
very interesting. Very interesting.
Dr. Tina Pearce, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We're approaching the end of our time. I always love to ask, oh, is the internet good? Are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
My face is juddering. Um, I always love to ask my guests what your number one vitality secret is with no preparation.
Okay. Well, for a woman of my age, it's HRT.
Interesting. Wow.
Okay.
Wasn't
So,
expecting
hey,
that.
oh no, I didn't think you might would. No, yeah. So for for women, it's please look at and try HRT. And if you are happy on it, stay on it forever.
Interesting.
And
Interesting.
do a deep dive into have a look at a very interesting paper written by Dr. Avram Bluming on the Cancer Journal 2022. And his article covers all the benefits of HRT, and it's specifically written for why can't women after breast cancer have HRT? And he looks at all the evidence and he discusses it. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting you have to have breast cancer to look at that article. I think all women should look at that article to be
Yeah.
well informed. And because he covers so well the benefits and the risks. And then there's another article by a Dr. Bruce Hoffman, which
Mm.
was recently done.
Yeah.
And he has written a very good article, very clearly stating that actually women who go on HRT reduce their risk of breast cancer. So we
Interesting.
just need to get rid of that myth because often women don't go on it because they're fearful of breast cancer.
There's also the side effects to consider, though, aren't there, with any form of HRT?
Um, it's about making sure you're on the right one in the right way and the
Mm.
right dose. And that means being tailor-made for the individual.
Love
So
that.
the benefits are huge. It's not one
Yeah.
size fits all. And you know, the benefits are massive. So it completely prevents osteoporosis. And I've seen
Wow.
women with osteoporosis who have then gone on to HRT. And over a 3 to 5 year period, we've taken them from osteoporosis to osteopenia, and then from osteopenia to normal healthy bone density
That's
just
amazing.
by being on HRT. And then
Mm.
also it reduces their risk of dementia by 60%, 65%,
My
reduces
goodness.
their risk of heart disease by 60%. And that's the biggest killer in women is heart disease.
Mm.
You know, 1 in 3 women by the age of 80 will have osteoporosis, but not if you're on HRT. You won't, you won't have any
That's
of
so
those
interesting.
diseases. And if women don't go on HRT, they will have 20.4 years on average of a chronic disease. They
That's
will
interesting.
suffer a chronic disease. So
Wow.
that'll be Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or osteoporosis or, you know, dementia. So I think there's a lot going for it. And it keeps you full of vitality, keeps the libido up and the enjoyment of all of that. So
Okay.
people need to look at it very carefully.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing.
It's a pleasure.
Again, thank you so much, Dr. Tina Pearce, for all you're doing in the world, spreading the good news, the good work, the solutions. For anyone who wants the augmented NAC, I'll share a link below and you can use the discount code Vitality Code for 10% off. I'd love to have you on again. This has been so valuable. Thank you. I'll hopefully meet you in person very soon.
I hope so. It's been my complete pleasure. Thank you, Neil, for everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Thank you for listening to the Vitality Secret podcast. If you liked this, please leave a 5-star rating. And if you loved it, please take a few minutes to leave a review. The more ratings and reviews that are left, the easier it is for this life-changing information to get into the hands of people who need it. Take your vitality to the next level at vitalitysecret.com.